My name is Emma. I'm 28 years old. I have been working as a computer programmer for almost 10 years, and I work from home. There aren't so many programmers, so there's more than enough work. I have been in the association for a long time, and I'm now in a position to manage multiple teams and run operations. I, who was seen as weaker and lower than anyone else, am now a leader. I think life is truly unpredictable. Ever since I was a child, people around me have always made fun of me for being gloomy and insecure. I have been despised in elementary school, middle school, high school, and of course at home. The person who has despised me the most is my brother, Jack. When my brother graduated from high school and left home to go to university, I was really relieved. As for me, after I graduated from high school, I just stayed home. I could say that my parents allowed me to stay home because I gave up going on to higher education. I have rarely left my room for 10 years, and I have experience and accomplishments. My mother and my brother used to, and still do, look down on me and make fun of me, but my father has never done that. I can't believe that my father married my mother, who is so mean to me. My father was such a kind man. When I was having a hard time or when I was sad, I used to cuddle up to my father, who was working in the kitchen, and cried. We used to use our main floor as a small pub, and he ran the place by himself.
It's okay, Emma. Don't worry. You can get through this. Everything will be all right.
I kind of knew that he was telling himself at the same time as he was telling me. His pub wasn't doing well, and he was losing money year after year. Because of this, my father could not say anything back to my mother, who worked in the company, when she blamed him. We were renting the place, and the rent was $3,000 a month. When my business took off 3 years ago, I took on the payment of that rent. I still remember my father's surprised face when I offered to take care of the rent. I had never seen my father smile like that before or thanked me with teary eyes. I worked even harder to support my father's pub. I think it was during that time that I grew the most as a programmer. I was repaying my father by working. That made me really happy. It was about 6 months ago that my father suddenly became ill and passed away. My sadness hasn't changed since then. I can cry endlessly, but I couldn't keep crying. That's because as soon as my father passed away, my brother, who did not get along with my father, came back home. He got married a few years ago. His wife's name is Arya. She was sly and had a sharp tongue, and she was suitable for my brother, who was mean. In the absence of my father in the house, my brother and his wife began to behave as if they owned the place.
Hey Emma, do you still stay in your room and play with your computer all day long? That's creepy.
Don't say that, Jack. You're being too honest. She would feel sad.
When my brother and his wife started messing with me, my mother got into the swing of things and attacked me. My mother, already retired from work, has been hanging around at home all day these days, and every time she sees me, she clucks her tongue and mumbles that I should just leave the house.
If your dad wanted, he could have taken Emma with him.
Every time my mother teased me with unfunny jokes, and I was alienated in the house, it made me think. There's no point in me staying in this house anymore. I should leave as soon as possible, and I should live on for myself. Now that my father is gone, there is not a single person in the house who is on my side. My brother clucked his tongue every time he saw me in the house, and his wife followed suit. Needless to say, my mother ignores me, and we even have meals separately. My mother is actually my stepmother. My birth mother passed away in a car accident before I can remember. Although I call my stepmother my mother, I only do so because I have no choice. My brother is her son from a previous marriage. He is not related to me or my father by blood. That's probably why my mother and my brother could be as cold to me as they wanted. After my father passed away, my brother and his wife took over the pub. They had been interested in the food and beverage industries for some time. However, they closed the pub, which my father had left, without hesitation. The selfish brother and his wife then converted the pub into a cafe and started a business. My brother has a job, so he helps out only on weekends, and his wife manages the pub. My brother used my father's inheritance to pay for the renovation of that cafe without asking. I'm usually a calm person, but this made me very upset. That was the money my father left for both of us, wasn't it?
That was the money my father left for both of us, wasn't it? How could you use the money without asking me?
Don't yell at me. It doesn't suit you, a gloomy person.
From that moment on, the dirty attack from my brother and his wife against me became even worse. They became blatantly hostile to me and told me to leave the house.
You parasite, get out now. I get nauseous just looking at you.
It kinda makes me feel like I'm watching slugs. Of course, my mother joined them.
That's right. Get out of the house. I don't want someone who sponges off us around here.
I was truly taken aback by how ignorant and arrogant the three of them were.
I immediately started making the arrangements to move while I was thinking that they should all go to hell. I found a condominium that looked comfortable to live in, signed a contract, and hired a mover. As a housewarming gift, I even bought a new computer for myself. At my last moment at home, I turned to the three of them and said,
You have to take care of the rent from now on. I'm not gonna pay for it.
You don't own this house?
My mean brother is stupid. I didn't even feel like laughing. Maybe my mother wanted to show that she is stronger than I am till the end, and she was holding her head up bravely.
The rent is $3,000 a month. I hope you can cover it with the sales from your cafe.
Wait, Emma, you've been paying $3,000 every month?
My brother looked very surprised, so I decided to give him the details. During the last 10 years that I have worked as a programmer, I have started my own company. My company currently has about 40 employees. Everyone is a competent programmer. I have led various projects to success with them. It was easy for me to pay $3,000 monthly. I'm planning to expand my business, using my new condominium as a base. This move is a very good opportunity to start something new. When I said that, my brother forced a smile and started clapping.
I had no idea. You're awesome, Emma. You can stay here.
What?
I said you don't have to leave the house. You can stay. Right, Mom?
He asked her suddenly, and my mother nodded in surprise.
Yes, he's right. You don't have to leave.
I agree. Wow, you're amazing, Emma. I'm impressed.
They changed their attitude completely. They seemed to have changed their mind when they found out the amount of rent and my financial ability, but it was too late. I stood up holding the last bag.
You're idiots. I'm not gonna help you guys. Bye.
They tried to stop me, but I shook them off and left the house. I then started a new life in a spacious condominium. No one will complain when I work while I drink a cup of coffee by a bright window. When I want to change my mind a little bit, I can visit a nearby cafe and do the work there. Once I realized how free I was, I started changing slowly. I started wearing the clothes I like, and I changed my hairstyle. I started checking out the places and the items I was interested in. My teammates told me that my voice became brighter, and they were happy for me. It seems that up until now, I have had a really low, dark voice during meetings. Since I made a positive change, my employees seem to have brightened up as well. On the other hand, as for my private life, my brother has been calling me constantly. When I kept ignoring his calls, my mother started calling me. I could have blocked their calls. I have no problem doing that because I have no regrets about leaving their house. The reason why I didn't block their calls was because I wanted to get back at them. For example, when I couldn't help but feel depressed, I answered his call. He tries to get me in a good mood, and he tries to make me come back to their house. Desperately. The pathetic brother's voice was amusing as he flattered and tried to earn points. My mother was almost the same.
Please forget about what happened in the past.
She said sweetly. After I listened to what they had to say, I said absolutely not. And I shunned them. If I go back to their house, I have to live with the three people I hate the most in the world, under the same roof. Why would I try to challenge difficulties like that? I turned the tables. The reactions of my brother and my mother when I pushed them away was hilarious. I remembered all the mean things they had done to me, and I got back at them little by little. I learned many things while I was talking with my brother on the phone. My brother and his wife actually have a large amount of debt. Most of the debts were apparently from my brother's gambling. He said that he declared less to his wife, so he's really in the dark. My brother got into gambling when he was in university. At first it was slot machines. He sometimes went to the horse races. Eventually, my brother became addicted to gambling and started enjoying poker as well. My brother met his wife at the racetrack when she was there with her friends. Her friends liked the race, but she wasn't interested in horses at all. She had little interest in gambling itself, and her hobby was shopping. My brother said that his wife has so many clothes, shoes, and bags that they could even open a store. Whenever she has a free time, she goes online and starts shopping. That's why they're short of money whether they earn it or not. It's pathetic. It's astonishing that they continue to live such a wasteful life even now that they're in a tight spot. My mother told me more about them. She said that even though they live together, my brother's wife doesn't try to help with the housework. And she's such a useless daughter-in-law. She only does her own laundry, and she doesn't do anything else. She doesn't clean, cook, or clean up after herself until she's told to. It was depressing just to imagine what a bleak atmosphere their house must have been on a daily basis. In addition, the cafe is not doing well at all, and they're apparently still losing money. Generally, it takes 6 months to a year for a cafe to get off the ground after opening. The funds miraculously raised through bank loans were gone within the first 3 months. They should have anticipated and prepared the operating fund for at least 6 months. There are hardly any customers in the cafe, and the atmosphere at home has been awkward. My mother said that the relationship between my brother and his wife is now on the verge of collapse. That doesn't mean that I have any obligation to do anything for them. At least you can support my brother, I said, and I hung up the phone. My mother contacted me many times after that, and she asked me every time to move back to live with them. She called me a parasite. She said that I was sponging off them, and she said whatever she wanted, but she just pretends like nothing happened. She's so shameless. Recently, she started trying to get pity from me. She's already 60 years old. She said that her body is aching everywhere, and it's hard for her to do the housework. When I asked her if she means that I should come home so that I can do the housework, she quickly denied. She said that if somebody who she feels comfortable with is by her side, she feels at ease. She said that she is fine as long as I am by her side and I help her out from time to time. It was crystal clear that my mother was after my money. Of course, I didn't believe my mother's words, and there was no reason for me to obey. What was unpleasant was that my mother would bring up the memories of my late father.
He was such a nice person. I think he's feeling sorry for me right now. Emma, you're very nice, just like your father. I'm sure that you can't just leave your family alone.
However, bringing up memories of my father like that was completely counterproductive. I know how much of a hard time my father had because of my mother. How many times have I heard her call my father a good-for-nothing husband who operates the unprofitable pub? My mother used to despise me so much, but now she has no choice but to flatter me while bowing her head. If my father were watching, he must be laughing at my mother. If he were feeling sorry, he must be pitying her for her ugly thoughts. I then informed my brother that our mother had been bad-mouthing him and his wife extensively. As expected, I heard that a fight broke out between my mother and my brother and his wife. I also heard that now my mother calls her daughter-in-law a parasite and tells her that she is sponging off them. Both my mother and her daughter-in-law asked my brother which side he is on, and he is in trouble. 2 months later, they found out that my brother's wife was having an affair. According to her, the man approached her when she was alone at a cafe. She wasn't getting along with my mother, and my brother has been in a bad mood. She had been unhappy for a while, so she yielded to temptation. When my brother found out, he became enraged, of course. Normally, this is a situation where both of them should calm down and discuss the future. However, my foolish brother took unexpected revenge. He cheated on her as well. They blamed each other, and they had a huge fight. Things from the house flew this way and that in the air. The fight between the couple apparently continued until a glass ashtray that his wife threw hit my mother's leg. My mother was diagnosed with a broken bone that would take several months to heal, and she was bedridden and unable to do the housework. Maybe his wife felt a little bit responsible for it, so she offered to do the housework. However, she has never done any of the housework before, so she couldn't do well. My mother should have just let the small mistakes slide, but she took the opportunity, and she complained.
My mother complained that the rice was too hard and the food was too salty.
This is a typical daughter-in-law bullying. My brother's wife wanted to throw it all away, but she couldn't, and she became more and more stressed. She was angry at her husband for cheating on her to get back at her. And she was also angry at herself for hurting her mother-in-law by mistake. She was responsible for taking care of my mother, so she couldn't even talk about divorce. My brother said his wife's mental state is now at its worst, and she is completely depressed. My brother is also having a hard time because of the love affair that he got into as revenge. He ended up being deeply resented by the person with whom he cheated. She seemed to be very clingy, and she called him at home and at work to harass him. As a result, my brother was no longer able to stay at the company, and he was forced to leave voluntarily. The alimony for the affair caused my brother to incur new debt.
However, he couldn't find a stable job right away, so he began working one-time jobs to make fast cash. I feel uncomfortable when I am home because of my mother and my wife, so it's better to go to work. The house used to be so noisy because my brother and his wife were fighting, and my mother and his wife were arguing. He said it's now all quiet because nobody wants to talk anymore. My mother doesn't even want to see his wife's face. The same goes for his wife. She doesn't want to see my mother or my brother. My brother also feels uncomfortable to talk to them. It's a three-way standoff. They don't want to communicate, but they're still living together. Hell is the only way to describe it, and I'm horrified. After he told me these stories, he asked me for money. Of course, I refused once and for all. If I let money out of mercy, they will be spoiled and they will never leave me alone. People say the relationship ends when the money runs out, so I want to end the relationship here. He said he will call me again before he hung up, so I decided to block his calls. At the same time, I blocked my mother's calls as well. As for his wife, I don't even know her number. Since I don't answer calls from blocked numbers or unknown numbers, it should be fine. They couldn't pay the rent and they went separate ways. My mother moved into a nursing home and my brother and his wife got divorced. There's a rumor that the house already has another tenant. No one knows where my brother and his ex-wife are. I'm sure they're living somewhere quietly and paying back their debt little by little. I, on the other hand, am doing well and getting along well with my employees. I have nothing to complain about. However, there might be a bump in the road. I was introduced to a man by one of my employees, and we decided to date. He's a young businessman. His looks are average, but he's not ugly. He's a wonderful person, and when it comes to work, his eyes become sharp and my heart skips a beat. I will surely find happiness.